This is North 12th Street, and we are entering the Twin Rivers housing complex and neighborhood. It's been here for more than a half century, and it is home to a lot of folks who are low income or need housing assistance. And it's about to undergo a major development. In fact, so major that the entire thing is going to be knocked down and completely rebuilt. Part of that's going to be done with a federal grant, and the rest of it is money that's going to be leveraged by using those federal grant dollars. All right, so Geoffrey, you're going to walk us through what we can expect once this Twin Rivers project is completed.
Right, so here you can see that we have a layout of 6 new city blocks, A through F, going through here. And our first development is going to be Block A here on the corner of Dozier and Richards. And this is where our first higher density, more urban building is going to be. It's about 4 stories on that intersection and corner, and allowing for us to be able to bring in a nice mix of units and amenities right off the bat. What you'll also notice with this is that we are starting to set aside easements to allow for the eventual realignment of Richards Boulevard, which on the eastern end here will really allow us to address the intersection that is 16th, 12th Street, and Richards at a future point, because Block F, which is one of our blocks, also sets aside room eventually to allow for that realignment. Right now, the cycle track and the complete street of 12th goes along this alignment, and that's really going to allow the flow to go from west to east, crossing the street, because we'll have new intersections and ways for folks to cross the street to what will become our new light rail station that will be right here on the corner of Sproul and 12th Street. We are also going through and adding, as I had mentioned before, a new park in the center of the development, so that way you're really getting a neighborhood that is going to have a sense of place and cohesion, and ties into a lot of the different activities that are going on. What's key is, as part of those linkages, the work going on 12th Street brings us up to the American River Parkway, and eventually you can take the parkway all the way over to the Sacramento River along the waterfront. And so you can start to see how we connect into some of the amenities that are there. This is a rendering of Matsui Park. What we're hoping to do is Matsui Park doesn't function as well as we would like, and so we're trying to look at ways to enhance that amenity. This is showing the Hanami line. It's a cherry trees that we're trying to bring in that will pay homage to the history of the Japanese in Sacramento. This is where the new Powerhouse Science Center is going to go, and really trying to make sure that the activities at the Powerhouse Science Center, the amenities of a city park, all function well together and are easily accessed, because again, here is the bike trail that residents that are living on the eastern side of the district in the neighborhood can easily come over and enjoy the amenities on the western side. Along the way, we really want to continue to build on sense of place. This is just an example of the type of markers that you see in other places around the country along waterfronts that give you a little bit of the history and sense of place that you are. As we know, the River District is the terminus of the Grand Continental Railroad. A lot of history for 150 years flowing through the neighborhood, and so we want to build on the amenities and that history and that sense of place as we go through our development here. This is a rendering of what our first phase is really going to look like. Again, this is Dos Rios here, this is Richards there. This is our first building that's going to have the management, offices, our community center, a pool, and you can see going back we have a nice mix of buildings, and there's the park in the center of the new community, and then we flip it around so you can see, from the center of the community looking back. So again, the park, and then looking back at the corner of Dos Rios and Richards Boulevard here, with the new grid pattern and streetscape coming into effect. Here's what it looks like from the street. So if you're looking at our buildings from across the way, this is what you would see. Really trying to create a nice urban feel that respects the fact that the River District is a nice eclectic mix of industrial and older buildings, and so we're not trying to dismiss that history. We're trying to build on the amenities and the features that are there today. And again, some additional just different ways of looking at the buildings. All of our parking is going to be in the center, so that way you have really nice building massing right on top of sidewalk, and it really functions kind of what folks expect to see when they go to Midtown and some of our other neighborhoods in the Central City area. And again, some additional elevations and angles of what to expect to see when the project is built.
So when does the work begin, and when are we expecting to start moving the first people into the new units?
So if all goes as planned, you will see construction really beginning late next spring, early next summer of 2018. 18 months from that time, the first residents should be able to begin to move on site. We have 2 phases of demolition. You'll actually see the demolition occur shortly after the new year in 2018, and we're going to be knocking down about 60% of the current site to make way for these first few phases, and by doing that, that allows us to put about 80% of the infrastructure back on, really begin to build the roads and the drainage and all the things that need to go in there. And then as the first residents come back online, we will do the second phase of demolition, and then that will allow us to begin or to finish the last few phases and to complete the project. We have to basically be able to fully expend the grant dollars that we received and have the replacement units back online by 2022. So we have about 5 years to get everything done, and so we're going to have lots of concurrent phases and lots of activity.
No problem getting that done in 5 years, right?
No, we're going to get it done.
We're with Shelle Dozier, Executive Director of the Sacramento Housing and Redevelopment Agency, and Geoffrey Ross, who is the Assistant Director and in charge of this Twin Rivers redevelopment. Now, the first thing I wanted to ask you about, and Ms. Dozier, we have talked about this before as this project has been in the works, but what is the need in Twin Rivers? What is the area need that you need to go in there and do this heavy rebuilding?
Well, the Twin Rivers community is a community that was built in the 1940s and 50s. So as you can imagine, anything that was built that long ago is really in need of huge renovations, and really it's the infrastructure is crumbling. So we need to go in and really start all over. And a part of starting out all over is really looking at the entire neighborhood. So not just the physical buildings, but the entire neighborhood, and more importantly, the people who live there, who have been in a situation where they have been isolated and cut off from the rest of the community. So our whole, idea and project here and vision is to how do we reconnect this group to the neighborhood and improve the outcomes for the individuals who live there.
Yeah, and the term being floated around is reimagining communities.
Yes.
Tell us a little bit about that concept.
Well, in terms of reimagining communities, we have gone for this grant from the federal government. It's called Choice Neighborhoods. And a part of Choice Neighborhoods, I think, is an evolution that HUD has realized that it is important to look much broader. And what's more important is also to figure out how can you put things in place that really assist and help the families who live there. So we've had the great fortune to be a recipient of a $30 million grant that allowed us immediately to start working with the residents who live there. So before any building is ever torn down, we have spent countless hours and really years working with the residents and talking about what are their issues, what are the barriers, and how we can start to address them. So it's very comprehensive when you look at just the residents, but then it's starting to go further and further about what is the community and what changes need to happen outside of just our development.
What are some of those more common barriers and issues that the folks living in Twin Rivers are facing?
Well, one of the key barriers is transportation. And if anyone has gone past there, they probably have passed it a million times and not realized that there are 218 residents, not residents, but units there. And there's a light rail that continues and goes straight past and doesn't stop. So in order to actually even access the light rail, you have to go down the street, and it's a very treacherous journey because it's not a safe place to walk. So there's no way to really connect to public transportation. And as we know, our residents usually have issues in terms of having their own personal transportation, a car or a vehicle to get around. So this particular project will really change that, and will really start to focus on transit-oriented development and creating a light rail station and housing above that light rail station that will connect into this community.
Now, the other thing that stands out to me is the notion that instead of having this isolation, that the folks in that community being intermingled with new folks who come and move in and are working downtown or wherever they might be working will help lift those people up. Talk a little about that.
Well, a part of the Choice Neighborhoods focus is to really have much more of a mixed income community. So as we rebuild this, we will have all of the residents who are currently there will return or have a right to return. In addition, we will create affordable housing, so that'll be another tier up in terms of the income level that we're reaching. And then the final tier will be market rate housing, but it will all blend seamlessly together. So you can't identify who lives where. You know, they will, live in an area that you just don't know exactly, which one may be a person who is really starting out at the lower end of the income strata versus someone who is in a market rate unit. And the concept is that when you have a socially diverse community, it really does start to impact people's lives.
Now, in terms of the folks who are living there now, let's start with what's going to happen to them while there is building, because there is some temporary moving going to be happening.
Absolutely, and that's one of the points I really want to stress is that there will be no displacement of people in the sense that they will not have a place to go. We have a one-for-one replacement, so every unit we demolish, we will return that and more. The individuals will work with a case manager who is very experienced in relocation, will help them locate and find